Today, I'm going to show you guys how to build one of the biggest stacks ever with Galacticmon, resembling the fact that it is also one of the largest, if not the largest size Digimon ever. Digimon fans, welcome back, and today we'll be showcasing the Galacticmon Deck. This deck focuses on building a gigantic stack with lots of Vemmons in its Digivolution sources, which also lets you use it as a main resource of power when you're going into your Galacticmon. Unlike traditional decks, you can actually have up to 50 copies of Vemmons in your deck, just like Eosmon and ADR02 Searcher from D-Reaper. By having many copies, you can add in sources again and again, which lets you reduce Digivolution costs getting into your Destromon and Galacticmon for later on. Once you have your Galacticmon in play, you can disrupt your opponent's attacks, trash their security, and Galacticmon stays on board because it can protect itself from leaving play as well, which makes it extremely difficult for most decks to overcome. Like always, I'll show you guys how the combos work all together later on, but let's get into the deck profile first. I am also super excited to announce a new feature on my channel where I launched my very first ever YouTube membership called the Avault Club. By joining, you will have access to exclusive perks and contents that regular viewers don't have. Perks include the Avault Club membership badge, and the best part is that you'll be able to see members only community posts featuring my first draft deck profiles even before the video comes out. You will see more updates by me for every deck profile release and even updated deck lists and adjustments with all the lists. Your comments and questions will also have priority replies from me. So what are you guys waiting for? Click on the join button right now. Thank you all so much for the support, and I look forward to engaging with you guys. Okay, for Digi-Egg cards, we have the 4 copies of the Doraemon, simply because we do add a lot of cards underneath the sources with the whole mechanic of the deck, and being able to draw one afterwards with that gives us the maximum value, and you really just need the 4 eggs being the perfect egg for the deck, and that's it. Okay, now let's talk about our rookies, more like just one single rookie. Well, we do play Vemmon right here. We have 20 copies of Vemmon for this particular deck, and what Vemmon basically does, it's very similar to like Eosmon and like D-Reaper. You can include up to 50 copies of this exact same card in your deck, so it's really interesting. And its main effect is by suspending this Digimon, you review the top 3 cards of your deck, adding up to 1 Snatchmon, Destromon, Galacticmon, or fusionize among them to your hand. And then if you get to review another Vemmon, you get to put another Vemmon underneath him as its sources. You guys can see how it synergizes very nicely with the Doraemon Inheritable. Also, he provides an Inheritable himself as well. Your turn once returned, when this Digimon would Digivolve into a Destromon, Galactic, or Galacticmon, you get to reduce the cost by 1. So by stacking more Vemmons overall, you can reduce a lot of costs with this effect, which is going to be really good, and you can turbo into your Galacticmon a lot more quicker once you assemble all your pieces. Now, for now, I just only run 20. Some of you guys can run 24, 25. Really flexible based on your personal preference. The more you add, the more consistent the searching does happen. But overall, I think 20 is like the bare bottom line. I wouldn't go any less than that for sure in this particular deck, because you do need a lot of them for sure. And yeah, really up to you guys. Any number between 20 to 25 is like my personal recommendation. I wouldn't go to 30. That's a bit too much, because you do need deck space for other stuff in this particular build. But yes, Vemmon, once again, 20 copies for this particular build right here. For the level 4, we only have 1 level 4. This deck is really interesting. We have the 4 copies of Snatchmon. Snatchmon is the Digivolution version of Vemmon, so when Digivolving, you get to place up to 2 Vemmons from your trash underneath this Digimon's bottom Digivolution sources. Then, if you have 4 or more Vemmons in this Digivolution cards, you get to return 1 Fusionize from your trash back to your hand. Fusionize we'll get to talk about a little bit later, but it is the core option that you need for the deck to help you get into your combo plays for sure. He also has a Inheritable. All turns once a turn. When a Vemmon is placed from this Digimon Digivolution cards to the bottom of the owner's deck, you get to unsuspend this Digimon, and it gains blocker until the end of your opponent's turn, which I'm going to talk about more and showcase you guys how it all works in the combo segment later on, but you definitely need 4 copies of Snatchmon. You do not play any less. Just before we continue with the video, I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for watching and supporting the channel. If you're watching right now and have not subscribed yet, I would really encourage you to do so. That is because we got lots of Digimon deck profiles and videos on the channel coming and ongoing. So be sure to also turn on that notification bell while you're at it to stay tuned. Also, don't forget to give this video a like because it really helps. Once again, thanking you guys a lot, and I really appreciate it. Then for our level 5s, we have Destromon right here. Again, you have to play 4 copies of this one to maximize consistency in order to see it as soon as possible. Really good, important card. It can actually digivolve for 5 costs on top of a level 4. Usually will be your Snatchmon. Otherwise, you can actually digivolve for 6 on top of a Vemmon instead, which is a lot to pay for. Now, when digivolving, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You get to place 1 Vemmon among them underneath this Digimon's Digivolution sources, and then you trash the rest. Then, if there are 5 or more Vemmons in this sources, you get to delete one of your opponent's Tamers. Pretty nice. And then it has a Inheritable. Opponent's turn. Once per turn, when a Digimon attacks by placing 2 Vemmon from one of your Galacticmon's digital sources to the bottom owner's deck, you get to switch the attack target to the Galacticmon instead, which is going to be really good. So kind of like a blocker to redirect attacks, to stop your opponents, make it difficult for your opponents to play around generally when they try to basically attack for you into it. So yeah, again, 4 copies is a must for sure. Then for our level 6s, our main boss Digimon of the deck, where you have to play 4 of as well, is Galacticmon here. He does a lot of things. He's 14k DP, which is pretty big for a level 6, really strong. He can actually digivolve for 9 on top of a Snatchmon. Otherwise, you digivolve for 6 cost on top of a level 5 black Digimon, which will always be your Destromon. Now, when digivolving, you get to place up to 4 Vemmons from your trash under this Digimon's sources. Then, if it has 8 or more Vemmons in its sources, you get to delete one of your opponent's Digimon, any Digimon. No level restrictions, no DP requirements whatsoever, straight up just delete it. All turns, when this Digimon would leave the battle area by placing 4 Vemmons from underneath its sources back to the bottom of the deck, you get to prevent it from leaving play, which is really good. Protection against any type of removal, essentially, other than DP reduction, but just really strong, really good. That's why you always want to be turbo into this big boss Digimon as soon as possible. It has a third effect. Start of your main phase, you just simply trash the top card of your opponent's security, and that's it with this effect, which is why it's really good. And you know, you just want to control the board with all the combos and the big stack that you have with this deck in particular, and that's really usually it. But like I mentioned, I'll show you guys how it all works when we get to the combos later on. Then to round off for all the Digimon, we have the 2 Defexes right here. Defexes is just totally optional, totally personal on your choice. You guys don't have to play Defex. If you don't have access to Defex, you can just easily amp up and other ratios with the cards in this deck as well. But I just find that it's just a really strong card, really powerful card against certain matchups. When you can slam it down for almost free or very little cost is really why it comes out efficient. Of course, you would never really want to Digivolve it on top of a Galacticmon unless you really need to do so, because this card is always just about hard playing. That's it for all of our Digimon. Very simple, very straightforward. Let's go and talk about our Tamers. First, I like to play 2 copies of Tai Kamiya. You guys can amp this up all the way to 3 to 4 as well because it's really good. It is your memory tamer. It gives you extra 1000 DP during your opponent's turn, making it even more difficult for your opponent to try to swing over, especially when you have your big Galacticmon on the board to sort of protect you from being attacked. For the other tamer that I kind of added in here, there is Izzy. And also your memory tamer, but also really nice because on play you get to search the top 3, rearranging it, and if they're all black, you get to gain a memory back. I like to play 1 copy of this one just because in case sometimes if we do ever get to sort of like check in security, you can kind of pass your opponent's turn back to your own turn if their memory gauge is at 0, which is kind of cheeky and sneaky. But otherwise, you can play more Tai Kamiyas, totally up to you guys on that personal preference. We have 4 analog use, which is used for us to turbo search and turbo trash. You guys know that we want to add as many Vemmons as we can into our trash as quickly as possible, and analog youth helps us do that, which is really good. And also because of its second effect with all turns, when our level 5 or higher Digimon is deleted, we get to suspend him, hatch an egg, and gain a memory back. So giving a little bit of a somewhat like a comeback potential if our Galacticmon ever gets deleted. But we really don't want to get to that stage. Usually it's just a nice to have if it does ever happen. But let's be real, if you lose your first Galacticmon, it's usually game over anyways. But really, like I mentioned, Analog Youth is just to help you turbo search, turbo trash, find the pieces you need for a very cheap cost. That's it for all of our tamers. Let's talk about our options. 4 copies of Fusionize here. When you would use this card, if you have a Snatchmon, you get to reduce the cost by 1, effectively making it for free. Now, its main effect is by placing 1 Vemmon or Destromon from your trash under one of your Digimon as its bottom Digivolution sources. You may then Digivolve one of your Digimon into Destromon or Galacticmon from your trash for its Digivolution cost. Now, keep in mind, you still gotta sort of meet the normal requirements and pay its normal cost for whatever you're trying to do, but really good one, good effect, because just adding more sources is great, and then this really helps you turbo once again into your Digivolution combo, which I'll show you guys. It has a security effect. You get to reveal top 3 cards of your deck, play 1 Vemmon around them without playing its memory cost, and then you trash the rest. For more options, we then have 3 copies of Pride Memory Boost. Pride Memory Boost is really good for this deck. Also, arguably, like, you can play a 4 of, because it helps you basically revealing the top 3, and you can play your Vemmons, and then it trashes the rest of the cards, adding more resources to your trash for later on, which is always great. And of course, delay, gaining 2 memory is really good. And then last but not least, just for more defensive option text right here, I like to play the 2 Ultimate Flares, which is just really good for defensive capabilities against certain matchups. It can come in handy, but you guys don't have to play these options. Totally up to you. If you want to maximize efficiency and consistency in your deck instead, totally go for it too. Okay, so that's it for the 50 card main deck. Now let's show you guys some other cards I kind of considered adding into this deck, which actually works, and it's pretty interesting as well. First, you can actually play like a Ragnarlordmon package, which is very interesting because if you have one Galacticmon sitting on the board already, it is level 6, and then eventually you might build a secondary stack, and then you can go into a Destromon once again, but instead of going into another Galacticmon, you can actually Digivolve into a Durandamon, and then if you still have your turn, you can actually DNA into a Ragnarlord and sort of finish the game that way. And also because Galacticmon is very good at trashing security with its 3rd effect, so you continue trashing until they're lethal, and then with Ragnarlordmon's effect, you normally will build like a huge stack anyways, and by doing so, you have enough sources to trash 2 or 3 of your opponent's security, and then you can just go for the blitz for game. Sometimes you don't really need to blitz because there's no end of turn DNA, but you want to make sure it's your turn so that you can just swing in for game just like that, which is pretty nutty, pretty interesting, but yeah, pretty cool as well. Another alternative tamer you can play is Izzy and Joe. Izzy Joe is really good for like matchups that are just going wide, so you can gain more memory at the start of your turn, which is always really good. Yeah, just really that's its main effect for it. For more different kinds of removal, you can play Iron Fisted Onslaught, or a newer card right here. We got DG Dimension right here. When you would use this card, if you have a Black Tamer in play, which you usually would, you get to reduce the cost by 1, effectively making it a 7 cost. Main, you Digivolve 1 on 3 of your opponent's different Digimon, and then by doing that, afterwards, you can't go any lower than level 3, then delete 3 of your opponent's Digimon with play costs that are 6 or less. So again, really good for dealing with wide boards with this cost option, which is really good. Otherwise, Iron Fisted Onslaught is very straightforward enough, where you delete all your opponent's Digimon with the highest play cost right there. Alright, that's it for all the cards that I want to talk about. Now let's show you guys the combo and sort of how you want to be playing Galacticmon in general in this particular build. Of course, you're always going to be hatching into your Dorimon, and then you're just always going to be Digivolving it into the Vemmon as soon as you can. You don't really need to think twice. You just want to push up your Vemmon as soon as possible so that you can, in your main effect, or main phase, so that you can use your Vemmon's effect to reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. Ideally, you're going to see at least 1 Vemmon, so you can place 1 Vemmon underneath, and then you'll be placing the rest of the back to the bottom. But also at the same time, you're going to be searching for these cards that you can grab as soon as possible as well, and you're trying to find these pieces while doing so. Now, what normally happens is your opponent's going to swing over your Vemmons usually, which is okay, because the whole idea is that you want to be adding as many Vemmons as possible in your trash, which will be your resource later on. And this is why playing Analog Youth really helps turbo that as well at the same time for very little memory commitment. If you can set up your Pride Memory Boost, does exactly the same thing as well. And then, of course, you really want to be seeing your memory tamer at some point too. So being able to do that and having that kind of access to the memory is going to be really important. Sometimes you might be playing extra Vemmons during your turn. You might be just playing multiple Vemmons to pass your turn, to pass your opponent. So use these Vemmons to actually chip away your opponent's security in the early stages. You don't always have to search necessarily, but it's always nicer to search with the one that has the inheritable of the Doraemon, because if you do put something underneath, you get to draw an extra card, so you're maximizing your value that way with its main effect right there. So as you're building more Vemmons in your trash, eventually, again, you're just repeating this process and continuing until you see your Snatchmon, your Destromon, and your Galacticmon, and then having your Fusionize either in your trash, which you can recur later on, which is always going to be helpful. But let's just say you start your turn at 3 memory right here, and then you're all ready to go. Once again, you use your Vemmon's effect, and then you get to put something underneath, draw a card, and then you'll pay 3 memory to Digivolve your Vemmon into a Snatchmon here. Now, Snatchmon's when Digivolving effect is going to help you add 2 Vemmons from your trash underneath it afterwards, which is really good. Then, because you did that, you get to add Fusionize to your hand. Now, with Fusionize, because you have a Snatchmon, you reduce the cost of playing it for 1. So instead of 1, you actually pay it for free. Then you would place 1 Vemmon underneath, again with its effect, and then Digivolving it into a Destromon. Now, because at this particular moment, you should have 5 Vemmons in your stack, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you Digivolve your Snatchmon into Destromon for free. And then this is when you use Destromon's effect, revealing top 3, adding 1 Vemmon, so you add in another 1, so now you have 6 in total, and then you get to delete one of your opponent's tamers, which is going to be really good. And then afterwards, if you have Prime Memory Boost, then great. If not, it's totally fine to give your opponents a lot of memory. You'll pay 6, but because you have a new Vemmon in here, you effectively reduce the cost by 1 more, and you can Digivolve it into Galacticmon. And then when Galacticmon Digivolves, you get to place 4 Vemmons from your trash underneath it as well. So which is why it's very important to have many Vemmons as possible and to build this huge stack. So this stack is really huge. I'm just going to put the extra 4 Vemmons right here. And then this is where you start controlling the board and start, using your momentum and just start trashing your opponent's security turn after turn and redirecting the attacks back to them and stop them from attacking you over and over again. So then you can actually just slowly chip them down and win the game that way. So that's very, very simple. A very simple combo right here that you can pull off. Sometimes there are situations that you can't optimally play this combo where you might actually have to Digivolve your Galacticmon straight from a Snatchmon if you can. But you still, if you haven't done so yet during the turn, you can reduce the costs as well, which is going to be really nice. And but you do forgo the Destromon inheritable, which is really good generally. But there are ways to play out of it if you don't really see your pieces. Of course, your priority is always going to be seeing this particular combo that I showed you guys already earlier. But yeah, that's really it. Otherwise, sometimes your Destromon can also Digivolve straight on top of your Vemmon for more cost too, if you're really, again, not seeing the pieces that you need. And this is how you want to go around. And the whole goal is to eventually get into Galacticmon and then just start controlling the board. And then that's how you win, like I said. That'll wrap up for the deck profile for today. If you guys enjoyed the video and found it helpful, please give it a like. If you have any suggestions, recommendations, or questions, be sure to share it with everyone in the comments down below. We got lots more Digimon videos and content coming, so be sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on that notification bell to stay tuned. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have a great day, great night, wherever you are. See you next video. It's Avault signing out.